Up dog.
Up dog. Up dog.
Up dog sports talk.
All right, this is Just McGovern here, and I'm with the man to my left, Matt Miller.
Hey guys, what's going on?
Hope everyone is having a great week here. We were doing a rare Thursday afternoon recording after we took some days off.
Yeah.
Much needed, but we got a lot of college football to talk about here. There's a lot going on.
Big show today.
We got
The
conference
first
coming back.
ever show, Justin.
Yeah, right. This is the first ever show. We're going into college football right here.
Just diving right in.
Yeah, and obviously one thing is that we are doing this in a room full of animals. They're all sleeping at the moment, but they could pop into the show at any time, and that will be just very entertaining. Anyways, so we're going to get started here with the ACC. This weekend, Clemson was finally tested. The Syracuse Orange, a team that have looked absolutely terrible, just got blown out by the Liberty Flames the week before.
Hey, Liberty's looking good, though.
Rolled into Death Valley, and in the third quarter had 4th and 1 in Clemson territory, down by 6, with a chance to take the lead, and they punted. Clemson pulled away after that, and the test is over, but we finally watched Clemson kind of put the test here. Do you think it was just kind of them sleepwalking for a little bit, or do you think there might be some cracks finally showing?
They do have, I believe, Notre Dame next week. So they could be looking ahead a little bit, and this could have been like, oh, well, we should do well enough. So, let's just kind of look ahead a little bit to see if we can blow out Notre Dame.
Yeah.
So they just got caught looking. So there's nothing to worry about.
There was no upset there, but in other areas of the ACC, there's been upsets just about every week. The upset last week was the Wake Forest Demon Deacons, Dave Clawson and crew, stunned Virginia Tech. Big win for Wake Forest, who honestly was kind of forgotten about a little bit. They started the season 0-2, but the first loss was to Clemson. I mean, you can expect that.
And didn't they beat Appalachian State?
Not Appalachian State, no.
Oh.
They've not. I think they play like one lower division school in non-conference.
Yeah,
but
I watched that game and they looked pretty good, but you could tell their offense wasn't having it.
But yeah, otherwise, I think they had a close loss to NC State. They started 0-2 of those two games, and then we're kind of forgotten about. And then they've kind of rallied a little bit. They're 3-2 and looking pretty good. Good season so far for the Demon Deacons, but
no playoff contender
with
though.
Each conference here, we're going to go over their playoff contenders and kind of evaluate their hopes a little bit. So, playoff contenders in the ACC is pretty simple. We've got Clemson, who, I mean, in my opinion, probably would be a massive shocker.
Run away.
Massive shocker.
They're going to run away.
Doesn't make it. They're going to run away with it. But in the other corner, we've got Notre Dame.
Well, I can tell you right now, if Notre Dame loses to Clemson this week, they're probably not going to go to the playoff.
I think actually the biggest thing they face is that, it's tough to see Notre Dame beating Clemson, and
they don't have it in the pass game.
Yeah, and you need everything to beat Clemson, and the issue is the ACC's taking the top two teams in their title game, which means that Notre Dame would either have to lose a second non-Clemson game because North Carolina lost the other week, or they would have to play Clemson again and lose again, which means they have two losses out of the playoffs.
Out of the playoff.
Notre Dame's playoff chances are unfortunately very slim for the Irish, but
if they split, then it could go either way.
Yeah, but it would be tough for them to split. But I mean, you never know. It's gonna be in November in South Bend. Maybe the weather plays in their favor a little.
Could be.
I mean, those Clemson guys have not played up in cold.
Notre Dame does play pretty good at home. Most of their losses, the Clemson loss last year or 2 years ago, that was at Clemson.
I believe that was actually in the playoff, Matt.
No, the regular season.
Oh, yeah. I remember there was one, a couple years ago when they played in that hurricane.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
that was
actually a tight game. Although Clemson wasn't quite the unstoppable force then that they are now.
That's true.
Moving on here.
What conference do we have next, Justin?
We got the American. So
Power 6.
we got the biggest event that happened. We had undefeated Cincinnati going on the road to face undefeated SMU. The Bearcats, people didn't know they could pull it off. Their offense hadn't looked in sync. They rolled into Dallas and made a statement.
Yeah, they looked real good.
Pummeling the Mustangs.
It helps when Ritter got loose for like a 90-yard run.
Yeah, that was big. Like literally like a series after he threw up on the field.
He was testing his limits that game. I'm a little surprised they didn't put Ben Bryant in earlier.
Yeah, I agree. But, I mean, that was a huge run. And, yeah, they blew out SMU. It was an impressive performance.
Can they keep it rolling, though?
Yeah, that's the big thing.
If they keep it rolling, though, they could be in playoff contention.
Yeah. The one, and we will mention that in a few moments here. But, yeah, the one area where they really screwed themselves over, though, is when they had the COVID issues a couple weeks back and had to postpone the Tulsa game. 3 straight road games to end the year at 3 places they don't play that well. It's going to be tough.
Yeah.
It's going to be a
tough
road.
They don't play well at SMU, and then they pulled it off with a huge win.
This could be a magical team. Luke Fickell and the boys, they got something going there. But also, we have some other league favorites kind of pulling away from the pack a little bit. There were a lot of big, other than Cincinnati and SMU taking the headlines, there were a lot of big matchups last week, but it was a good little bit of separation for Houston, Memphis, and Tulsa.
Yeah,
those teams all
a case could have been made for UCF, but they just can't stay healthy, nor can they keep the laundry off the field.
Or play defense.
Yeah, that's true. They took a big step back this year.
Yeah, I mean, they still have a pretty good team, and they could play spoiler. I mean, that offense could be anyone. They're actually on pace to set the NCAA record for yards per game. They've only got like 4 games left in the year too, so they're like well on pace for the record. So they could be a record-setting team and have 2 losses or more.
Yeah, that'll be pretty impressive. American, not as bad as they used to be, but I don't think they're going to be able to contend too much yet.
Pretty solid league though.
Yeah,
I would say there's a few good teams in there, but obviously looking at the playoff. Cincinnati's the only playoff contender there is.
They got to win out, though, like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, they absolutely have to win out. It seems like they're already getting help from some other leagues. We'll talk more about those other leagues later, but it may come to a point where the playoff committee may not have a choice. They may be forced to. But as soon as Cincinnati loses a game, they're out.
Yeah.
Moving on to the league that was back last weekend. An absolutely wild opening weekend for the Big Ten.
Absolutely wild.
How can we start with anything else other than Indiana finally does it? For years now,
on a controversial call, though.
For years now, they have come so close to pulling out the big win, only to choke it at the last moment. They still almost did, but then Penn State ends up walking in the end zone there instead of just running out the clock. Indiana was perfectly happy to let them do that. Yeah. Took advantage of the last shot they got, tied it up, brought it to overtime, and then by an inch they steal that victory.
That was like a millimeter.
Yeah, that was by the narrowest of margins.
Yeah.
I mean, just an image that we're going to see throughout the whole year.
If you're an Indiana fan, you're celebrating. If you're a Penn State fan, you're not too happy.
You're pretty sad right now. Obviously, it took some shine off of the Big Ten's big matchup this week too, because you expected to see Ohio State and Penn State go into this game, both in the top 10. All of a sudden, here Penn State loses to Indiana. The only undefeated matchup in the Big Ten is Indiana.
They definitely got caught looking ahead. ahead.
Yeah, a lot of turnovers and everything. Issues are running back too for Penn State. Next thing, though, what we got to ask is, Northwestern. Last year, they were the most inept offensive team in college football. They were so bad. They opened this year in one game, putting up like as many points as it took them 6 games to do last year against Maryland.
They looked good.
They looked really good. And the big question is this new and improved Northwestern offense for real?
I think it's one of those cases where they'll come out hot because they prepped well, but then they'll kind of fade late in the year.
Yeah, I guess I don't know. I feel like those guys. I'm a little bit torn on it because on one hand, I'm not sure if I trust Maryland. They hired Mike Locksley, who might be one of the worst coaches in college football. The guy literally he's been a head coach for like 5 years now and has like 5 total wins. I have no idea how in the world he managed to get another better head coaching job. Years ago, he was at New Mexico and he won like 2 games in 3 years, and they were like the worst teams I've ever seen in college football history. I mean, the guy knows how to bring in talent, but
yeah, because they got a 5-star quarterback earlier, like this year, so
and
he can bring
right
him
now
in, but he's not that good of a coach, really.
Right now, he's starting Tua's brother even.
Yeah.
But yeah, he seems bringing talent, but doesn't seem to have a clue how to coach at all. So that will be the big question: is Maryland just this bad?
I think they are.
It is possible. I'm going to give a little bit because at the same time, like Northwestern looked a little bit more creative. They looked like they know how to get their guys.
Yeah, the
in.
Brainiacs got involved.
I think they're going to level off a little bit.
Pat Fitzgerald's still there.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
they changed the whole offense though.
yeah, they did look good, but like I said, I think this is one of those cases where they prepped pretty well, and they're probably going to fade late in the year.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then finally, the big headline of the Big Ten: Wisconsin's quarterback Graham Mertz ended up being the redshirt freshman. He ended up being the starter because their original quarterback got hurt. And then Mertz just goes out there and looks at the best quarterback they've had since Russell Wilson. Throws one incompletion late in the third quarter. Absolutely destroyed Illinois. This guy's a Heisman contender. Wisconsin's a national title contender now. They looked absolutely fantastic. 2 days later, he tests positive for COVID.
Yeah, I couldn't believe my eyes.
Third string quarterback, Chase Wolf, another great name. He tests positive. All of a sudden now we're going into this weekend and Wisconsin was going to be down to 4th string quarterback, Danny Vandenboom. Now, Wisconsin has been known for quarterbacks for several years. I don't know what in the world just happened to their depth chart. But when you're even looking at a 4th string with that name, Danny Vandenboom, who has thrown a touchdown on 100% of his college passes, I'm like, what in the world? Their depth chart's amazing here. And
yeah,
I mean, for a while there, it was looking like they were going to go into Nebraska with this going on, but then a few more positive tests. They were forced to postpone. Yep. But they'll be going into Purdue and Michigan potentially with Danny Vandenboom as their quarterback.
Wow. Well, let's see if he can stay perfect. 1 pass for 1 touchdown.
I mean, what a series of events there. And I would have to say that Wisconsin has, at this point, pretty much ended their playoff hopes.
Yeah. They were slim anyway. Like, they had to get past Ohio State. I don't see that happening.
Yeah. But to play at Graham Mertz, it was looking good. But I don't know. I feel like they're in trouble in a couple weeks here when they play Michigan. I mean, they're going to be going into Michigan with a 4th-string quarterback. And that's if they even get to play the game. They're without their head coach, too. Like, they're going to be without their head coach the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, they're going to take a few
They said the players are this 21-day protocol, but I think the coaches have to follow the same thing.
Yeah, Wisconsin's kind of screwed on this.
Yeah, and, I mean, this year looks so promising. So they definitely put themselves in trouble. That's for sure.
And speaking of them no longer being playoff contenders, we have a few from this league.
I know, yeah. Obviously, we've gone through 1 week, so, we haven't really eliminated a lot of people yet. But our playoff contenders in this league is almost everyone that's undefeated. Obviously, Ohio State's still considered the favorite. Justin Fields and crew. This weekend's going to be a big test, though, for them. So it's going to be tricky. Out there in Happy Valley.
There's
no fans.
It's always hard to play there. But I think Ohio State can pull it off. I mean, Justin Fields just threw 1 incomplete pass the last game. Like, he's rolling right now.
That offense just has so much talent. And as an Ohio State fan, that's very exciting to see.
But Michigan is on their heels in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
So if they like actually can pull off a few pretty big wins and maybe beat Ohio State, they can get their way into the playoff.
It'll be interesting. Michigan is definitely, I would say right
And they
now,
don't look
of
bad.
everyone, they're definitely number 2 on the list of odds right now. Their run game was very strong against Minnesota. Obviously, we have to see Minnesota. I know we're missing quite a few people in the lines because of COVID, so that might have been an issue. But Milton and that running offense looked very good, and it definitely was a different Michigan. It was definitely a different Michigan. I must say.
Yeah, I think Harbaugh felt compelled to kind of change things up a little bit. And he's starting to play to his personnel now. Like before, he was like, "You do my way." Now he's like, "Okay, well, this guy can do this. Let's work around that."
Yeah, like previously, he could have a running quarterback, and he'd stubbornly still make him a pocket passer. It looks like he's kind of let the reins off the offense a little bit and let the offense coordinator more call
Take
the
over,
plays.
yeah. And then we got Northwestern.
I know that. I mean, we talked about them
They're a
before.
long
They're
shot,
undefeated, but hey, the new and improved offense. Let's see what they got. Purdue pulled off a stunner over Iowa.
They're still Purdue though. Like don't take their one win seriously.
But I mean, hey, they were without their best player and their coach. They pulled it off against Iowa. That's no small feat.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
Purdue,
Iowa is pretty good. I think Indiana actually has a better shot than Purdue to get in.
Although
both are slim.
The one thing is with Indiana is they have a lot of tests ahead of them. They finally pulled one off over Penn State, but they still got Ohio State and Michigan on the schedule. That's going to be pretty tough. And even though, even though Rutgers is undefeated, they stink.
Yeah.
I didn't even bother putting them on the list of playoff contenders. They're not.
Hey,
playoff
Greg
contenders.
Schiano can pull can kind of turn them around a little bit, but no, they're not a playoff contender.
Not at all. Big 12 now. Let's transition here. Oklahoma State is being led by their defense.
I know. Defense in the Big 12, what is that?
Yeah, we've never seen such a thing. And Oklahoma State has just been, they've been so good against the pass. It's been pretty incredible. And they shut down Iowa State's leading rusher, Breece Hall, winning that game. They looked impressive. And I do have to say, like, I wasn't sure, I was a little bit skeptical of them at first. I mean, the longest I got to see them was against Tulsa. They basically slugged their way through that game, mostly through the help of Tulsa, not their own.
I got to catch parts of each game that they played in, and they did look pretty good, but they're like you said, they're definitely led by their defense. That defense has to hold the rest of the year.
Yeah.
That offense looks a little sluggish.
But this was actually Spencer Sanders, their quarterback, his first start back since playing like one play of the season opener. So maybe the offense could get in the groove here, and I think that will still be needed. But I do have to say, I think this defense kind of gives them a little bit of staying power.
Yeah.
They still have to get past Oklahoma, which they can never seem to do. But
It's those rivalry games, they get to you.
yeah, Oklahoma's had the edge on that rivalry for so
Years,
long.
yeah.
Every once in a while, Oklahoma State pulls one off, but otherwise.
But yeah, if they can beat Oklahoma, they're pretty much in the clear for the Big 12. And then at that point, they set themselves up for playoff.
Yeah, I agree. Which we'll talk a little bit more about that, but Kansas is having a rough year. They're so bad. I mean, I
Who's the
would
coach
say
again?
Les Miles.
Yeah, Les Miles had a decent year last year compared to what that program's done years past, but not looking well for them this year.
When you're Kansas, you need everything to go well. They were okay last year with a group of seniors, so some regression was expected, and they missed some practices and stuff because of COVID. So you can't have that at Kansas.
This is the Big 12, and they don't have like how Oklahoma always has quarterbacks. Oklahoma State always has running backs and quarterbacks. Like they don't have really that flashy player on offense that can get them through those big games. So once they play anyone worth talking about, they kind of get blown out.
Well, and I mean this year they don't have a defense that could get stops. They gave up like 3 special teams touchdowns to Kansas State.
Well, in their defense, Kansas State does look pretty good this year.
Either way, I would say we can almost certainly lock Kansas into a winless year. They look very
Terrible.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be a long year for Kansas, but maybe the year after they can start to build something. We touched on it a little bit, but for playoff contenders, Oklahoma State's the only playoff contender in this league.
Yeah.
They hold the league's hopes. As soon as they lose a game, they're out of it.
Big 12 is out of it yet.
But we'll see what they can do. Conference USA now. The main topic here, the Marshall Thundering Herd.
Versus Rice Owls.
No. That's a different one.
Well, I looked ahead. My bad.
Anyways, Marshall played the last other undefeated team in Conference USA in Florida Atlantic. Easily beat them using their defense again. Marshall's defense continues to dominate.
Where are they? They're ranked pretty high.
Yeah,
year,
I think they're up to like 19th in the polls now. I mean, Marshall's having an
but
incredible
their defense
year.
is ranked pretty high too. I think they're in the top 10 in defense.
I would say they're almost like top 5. That defense is incredible.
Yeah.
They absolutely made a statement earlier in the year when they were on national TV on CBS in the afternoon and shut down Appalachian State. I mean, Marshall looks like they could go undefeated this year. But obviously, the one problem is they're only down to like 4 games left in the season. Their season's already come to a close as some begin.
Yeah.
Lots of COVID issues have messed up a lot of games. They lost their game against FIU this weekend. I did see someone point out that at the end of November, last week in November, Marshall and BYU are both off. Someone please get this game on the schedule. I want to see those two go at it.
Yeah,
Two
that would be a
strong
really
defenses,
good game.
They both were playing good on offense too.
That would be a really good game.
Someone's got to make that happen. We need that game.
Unfortunately, I don't think they care enough to put that game on the schedule.
We'll see. I mean, I feel like both teams are trying to do what they can to get more games on. So I'm hoping they can get it together. That would be a good game. Also, thinking about how good Marshall looks. They were originally scheduled to play Boise State at home this year. That would have been a big game.
Yeah, a huge game.
Yeah, that would have been a fun one.
Yeah, Boise looks good too, but we'll get to that a little later.
But the other game, one of the most exciting games that nobody watched in Conference USA, the Rice Owls finally started their season taking on Mid-10 State. They go to overtime. In the first overtime, Rice has a chance to win. Kicking the field goal, it goes doink, 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 doink.
Quadruple doink.
A quadruple doink. One of the most unfortunate things I think I've ever seen. We heard about the Bears like years ago, had their double doink.
Yeah.
A quadruple doink.
That's just like, no, you are not meant to win this game.
That was just that was so.
That's a
unfortunate.
heartbreaker.
And
you can't even be mad at the kicker. Like he did all he could. Yeah, he could have kind of put it in the middle a little bit more, but like he put some spin on that ball to keep it alive. That's a heartbreaker right there.
That poor team and that poor kicker. They waited so long to get in the field. They lose their season opener like that.
Hey, they're getting publicity though. I cannot say that. Publicity, yeah.
There you go. But that was a tough one. And then also, just this coaching carousel at Southern Miss has been very entertaining.
Yeah.
So they had their season opener against South Alabama. They get blown out. South Alabama was not that good last year, but they actually do look better this year. I thought that teams would have like a better rein in their head coaches this year. They would give them a little bit more of a break. That was not the case at Southern Miss. They fired their coach after one game.
Yeah.
Well, I've told him to resign, but he was fired.
Yeah, pretty much.
Told him to resign after one game, and then they end up with interim coach. Go through a few games of the interim coach. Interim coach tests positive for COVID now. So now he's out of there. And now they win this last week with an interim head coach. They lose that game, and then the previous interim coach, who was currently out of COVID, ends up getting a head coaching job somewhere else. So going through the rest of the year now with their third string head coach.
I don't think we've ever seen this before.
We have not. This year, 2020 is bringing all sorts of unpredictable things. And I mean, we just had to bring the attention here that Southern Miss is currently on their third string head coach.
And they're only like 3 or 4 games in, right?
Yeah, I think maybe like 5.
5, yeah.
Conference
I don't think they
season's
played
over for a
every
little
week.
bit, so
Yeah.
I feel like they're about 5 games in. But when we're talking about playoff contention,
Conference USA.
We mentioned Marshall's schedule before. They're not playing enough games against enough opponents to really be considered a playoff contender.
Do look good though, but
yeah,
it's all
I mean, the sad part is they're like, even for a New Year's Six bowl, they're on contention for that. Even they could finish the season ranked and undefeated, but so Maction's back. Maction is going to be back this week. Matt, what are your predictions?
So I'll be honest with you. I did a little bit of research on this league. After that little bit of research, I actually know less than what I knew before. They're actually such a bad league. I think everyone finished like within a few games of each other, but it was like the best team had like 5 losses.
Yeah.
So they kind of beat each other up. Could go any way. Central Michigan seems to be pretty good, right?
They look promising.
So I'll have to go with Central Michigan for this league. They haven't played any games yet.
Who do you think you got in the East Division?
I don't know. That's a tough one. Maybe Ohio. They look pretty bad though.
Bobcats are at least a decent pick. I mean, they're always in contention, so we can see what they can do. Yeah, this league.
What about you?
This league was so balanced last year. I do have to agree. I was even trying to research what teams could do, and I have no idea how the hell this is going to go. That's the fun of action. You really don't know what to expect.
We went to Bowling Green, and I really want to pick Bowling Green, but I know they're not going to do anything this year.
Yeah, Bowling Green's going to stink. Akron's going to be even worse. The East Division was a little bit easier than the West. I could literally see any of the 6 teams in the West Division winning it. I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bulls to take the East Division.
Yeah, they're always in it.
They're looking pretty solid. Lance Leipold and staff have been doing really well there. But in the West Division, this division's pretty unpredictable. But I'm going to say that I'm going to go with Central Michigan as well, actually. I think they can do it. I think they can get there, but I think the Buffalo Bulls are going to take the conference this year.
Yeah, but there's not much mentioning it because they don't have any playoff contenders.
Nope, they're not.
They never will.
Games. They'll never play contenders as it is, but they're not playing enough games this year. So, Mountain West, we had their season opening set of games here, and some of it was pretty routine. The top contenders in the league, Boise State and San Diego State, easily rolled over their opponents. Both games were over by halftime.
Yeah,
and they both just coasted in the second half. Pretty impressive performances. It'll be interesting, though. I don't think either one of them play in the regular season, and they both play less conference games than the other teams.
Yeah, that'll be a good one to watch. Both of them looked pretty good last year. I think at one point, both of them were considered to go to American.
Yeah.
So could they be playing their way out of Mountain West? I guess we'll have to wait and see on that. But
I do have to say, it would be pretty huge if the American would get them. I feel like they should try to pursue that on both sides.
Yeah.
Because,
that could be a nice little rivalry game going.
yeah. Although San Diego State's a bit of a misfit in that conference. But
yeah, they're all the way on the other end of the country.
By the way, I think they're playing their games like 2 hours away from campus this year or something like that.
Yeah.
But, hey, you know what? They're up against it, but they can do it. I do it the other surprise, though. San Jose State went up against Air Force. Air Force had actually played a game this year and looked really good doing so, blowing out Navy, who, I mean, it's looked questionable times, but Navy has a decent 3-3 record.
Yeah. They show flashes of, well, I wouldn't say greatness, but goodness, I guess.
And San Jose State just dominated Air Force with their defense.
Yeah, they looked real good.
San Jose State was not a good team defensively last year, so that is a stunning improvement. I mean, they weren't even able to practice in the right spots for a while. I don't know how they managed to do this. It was very obvious the score was 0-0 at halftime even. San Jose State scored 2 touchdowns in the third quarter to take the game. Definitely an impressive performance by the defense. And now San Jose State might be a team to watch in this league.
In the league, but not really for playoffs.
Well, this league's not playing enough playoff No. Let's move on. All right. We got the Pac-12 now. This league is going through all sorts of turmoil. Will they play? Will they not play? They finally decided to play. They're finally back next week. Players that opted out. I mean, it's chaotic, but
Yeah, like what is it? Like half the league opted out.
it felt like it. A lot of star players have opted out of this league. It could really shake up the order. Who do you got winning each division and taking the league this year?
This kind of like the MAC. This one could go either way. They all actually look pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
USC tends to kind of run the show still.
Mm-hmm.
So I might have to go with USC, and then maybe Washington.
All right.
I don't know. Like Washington, I know they haven't been good in a few years, so like it's just like with everyone opting out, it's so hard to like pinpoint who's good and who's not.
Right. I do have to say they're good guesses. Who do you think would win that title game?
Probably USC.
USC. I'm thinking, even though Oregon and a lot of people opt out, I feel like the Ducks they've been recruiting pretty well. I feel like they'll end up running this division. The other thing I liked,
they don't have Justin Herbert though, so like
Yeah.
we have to see.
we have
how
to
that
see how
goes.
the new quarterback looks and everything. But the one thing I did like was that it felt like a lot of their road schedule. I know obviously the road schedule is not as big of a deal about fans in the stands, but I feel like Oregon's road schedule is pretty favorable. Their toughest road game was against Cal, and because Cal had troubles of practicing and everything, I feel like it's gonna be tough for them to contend. If it wasn't for all that, like how little like Cal got to be together with their team, I feel like Wilcox and that coaching staff could have made a lot of progress this year. I originally going into the season, I thought they could be the favorite, but too much going on there now for them.
Yeah.
I'm going with the Ducks in that division. On the
Oregon
other
does
side-
look pretty good, but like with COVID, they had like quite a few players opt out, and then new quarterback. Is it the same offense? Like, did they change the offense? Like, who knows? Like, we gotta. I don't know. It's one of those things that we're just gonna watch.
It's just chaotic and I can't wait to see it unfold.
Yeah.
In the other division, the South Division, I'm gonna go with you play to win the game. Herm Edwards and Co. at Arizona State. I think they're gonna take the South Division this year, but I'm gonna go with the Ducks to win the conference.
Okay. Some good picks there.
And-
But I don't think anyone's getting in the playoff though.
It's a tough one. I'm thinking maybe they're all playoff contenders because, I mean, I don't know. Like, I feel like if a team goes undefeated and looks good enough and they can think, how can we keep Cincinnati out? They might consider putting a Pac-12 team in. They're not playing enough games. And
How many games are they playing?
I think they're playing like 7 games.
Yeah. One less than the Big Ten.
eight once you get a conference title game in there. So
Yeah, that's only like one less game than the Big Ten. So
yeah. Theoretically, I could see it working. Although, knowing this league,
they'd have to win out. Whoever is in playoff contention will have to win out.
I mean, obviously, you need an undefeated team from this league to get in. But, yeah, my guess would be, I'm thinking if an undefeated team can get through. Otherwise, I think you're going to beat each other up. But,
Yeah, I think so. They do every year.
Yep, always. All right. Now we got to go to our next division here. I do have to say, this guy... That's the Arkansas head coach, Sam Pittman. This guy is something else.
He's electric.
He is. Did you just fart?
That was the chair, dumbass. We're still recording.
Okay, anyways. This guy is something else. I saw that video and I was like, this dude. Entering the season, Sam Pittman gets his head coaching job. And you look at, like, Mississippi gets Lane Kiffin. Mississippi State gets Mike Leach. And then you see Arkansas get this guy, and everyone's like, what the hell? Oh, like, what the hell is that? He was the one least talked about, and yet, so far, he's looking like the SEC coach of the year here.
I know.
Arkansas.
They're pretty impressive. That defense, very, very strong.
And the question is, Is Arkansas the SEC's best defense right now?
I think so. Alabama clearly is not playing defense very well. And then LSU, they're no longer a contender. So Arkansas might have the best defense. We have to wait to see some bigger opponents and see how things go. But Arkansas very well could have the best defense.
So far, that defense is playing very well. Definitely looking like a good year for the Hogs. Big one coming up this weekend, though. And then, so far this season, the officiating blunders, and somehow they've been in one team's advantage. Auburn has been getting very lucky.
Yes.
In key moments, calls have gone dramatically in their way that later the SEC had to go and apologize for because it was so bad.
Yeah.
So Arkansas, as we mentioned before, actually should be 3-1 right now. And actually, they may have taken one of their teams out of the rankings by making this error. But against Auburn, Bo Nix fumbles the ball and then spikes it backwards, which is actually considered still to be a fumble. But they called it a spike, and Auburn got to kick the game-winning field goal. So that handed Auburn one more win. In the season opener, Kentucky had a touchdown to take the lead before halftime. The officials reviewed it. He was clearly over the line, but they still didn't call it a touchdown. No one knows how. And then now last weekend, Auburn's returner, it hit his hand. Ole Miss was recovered for a touchdown, and they didn't even review it. Lane Kiffin called out the SEC officials for not reviewing it afterwards on Twitter. And then the SEC went and said, yes, you were right. And we're fining you $25,000 for being right about it and pointing it out.
Yeah. The officiating actually seems a little skep down there in SEC country. It's kind of always been like that. They kind of play their favorites.
Yeah. But they may have tied themselves to a bad horse in this case because Auburn is not looking good.
No. There's no way to save them if they make it to a decent bowl game.
Big time. But we still have some playoff contenders in this league. People have been talking about two teams making it. I think we're running out of options here. Obviously, Alabama, you look at their remaining schedule, nobody's going to challenge them at this point.
No.
You can go ahead and just shoe Alabama in the playoff. So I think the bigger question is, can they get two teams in?
I don't think so.
The other contenders we've got.
Well, we got Florida, first of all.
We got the Florida Gators. They got upset a couple weeks ago by Texas A&M and then had COVID come in. So now the big question is, how are they going to look after that?
They're going to look even worse because they haven't been able to practice with their coach or half their players.
Yeah, so that's going to be a big question. And even if they do recover that, I mean, Florida is the team in the SEC that has the best chance to beat Alabama because in order to torch Alabama's defense, you got to have a good quarterback. Florida has a good quarterback. They've got good receivers. They have the guys that can go up and beat Alabama.
Yeah.
On offense. The problem is Florida's defense has dropped off big time this year, and during this time off, they haven't gotten to fix it. So that question will still remain. But overall, I mean, just because of the quarterback play, Florida is the best shot that a team has of beating Alabama.
And Georgia?
And obviously at this point, the two-loss team's not going to get in. So Florida's already got one loss. They have to beat Alabama to get in.
And Georgia, they have 2 losses, right?
Georgia has one loss.
One loss. They're probably going to lose again.
And obviously, if they make it through, get to the SEC title game, they'll get blown up by Alabama again.
They're not going to make it in.
At one point, they could have had Justin Fields on their team. They chased him off and instead they're stuck with some guy named Stetson Bennett IV. He's about as bad as he sounds. He's not a guy that's going to beat Alabama.
No,
he's not.
That offense was so lackluster in the second half against Alabama that it was like, even if you put up a threat in the first half, you're not going to be able to maintain that.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you can stop their run game and they can't pass it. But theoretically, at this point, they still have a shot. But I don't know. I don't see them doing it. And then another team on the list that still has a chance technically is Texas A&M. I really hope that if they win out, they don't do this because Texas A&M doesn't have a tough schedule the rest of the way. In fact, their biggest test left might be this weekend against Arkansas. They got absolutely destroyed by Alabama and obviously wouldn't make the SEC title game. can you really put that team in the playoff?
No.
I mean, they would have one loss to Alabama, a win over Florida, but
Maybe in a couple of years when Jimbo Fisher gets more of his recruits in, but like you can't put him in this year.
yeah, I know. Going
They'll probably
through
put
the
it in
SEC
over.
loss,
They'll probably put him in over Cincinnati if it came to that.
but I mean, yeah, you putting in a team that lost like 52-24. That's a little too much. Hopefully not, but we'll see. We'll see what the committee does. Finally, our last league to go through here is the Sun Belt. This league is not getting enough credit. I mean, at this point, we're not thinking about enough that there actually is no argument to say that the Big 12 is better than the Sun Belt. The Sun Belt went 3-0 against the Big 12. Coastal Carolina's looked really good. Louisiana Lafayette has, they blew out Iowa State in the season opener. Iowa State's looked like a good team since then. Louisiana Lafayette also even doubled down just
and
recently.
they lost to Coastal Carolina, so
Yeah.
they looked really good in that game too, despite losing.
Yeah, and I mean the Raging Cajuns ended UAB's long winning streak last weekend. So, I mean that's looking like a pretty strong team. Arkansas State beat Kansas State, who's looking like a top Big 12 team right now. And I mean Arkansas State's struggling in conference play, but that's just the grind of the Sun Belt. Appalachian State's still a good team, and even like some of the lower teams like Georgia Southern, Troy, and South Alabama are looking decent. So this league's pretty tough.
Yeah, Coastal Carolina looks really good. They were the only team to get spring ball in.
Yeah.
So they have a good shot at going the distance, but since they're from the Sun Belt, a lot of people will not put them on their list.
Yeah. But I have stubbornly left them on as a playoff contender. They're undefeated. Grayson McCall looks really good. I still don't think you can argue that Oklahoma State's better than them at this point. I'm stubbornly leaving Coastal Carolina there as a Sun Belt, as a playoff contender.
What if it was Cincinnati versus Coastal Carolina in a playoff game?
Oh, that'd be great. Although I mean, most likely, if Coastal Carolina would get in the playoff in this crazy scenario, they get to play Clemson, in-state opponent. 2 playoff teams in the state of South Carolina.
Yeah, that'd be really nice.
All right,
For Carolina, at least, not for the rest.
That was a fun tour through college football. Before we come up with any more wild playoff scenarios, we're going to go ahead and sign off here. Any last comments on the state of college football at this point, Matt?
Looks pretty good. COVID's kind of running through it, but they've stayed afloat. So good job to the officials kind of keeping it to a minimum. But let's see if we can get some of these lower division teams into the playoff this year.
I know. It's finally. Let's see someone break through.
Yeah.
We have a season. We have a season going here. Everyone's about to be back.
Yep.
Looking forward to it.
Is that the show?
That's the show.
All right. Well, sign us off, Justin.
All right. Have a good week, everybody. Looking forward to another great game in college football. This is Justin McGovern signing off.
Bye, guys.